Hello all, welcome to the Integrator Catalyst webinar. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. Before I get into the content of today's webinar, I just want to summarize what the Integrator Catalyst does really quick. And firstly, my name's Clayton Stinson and I am the Integrator Catalyst. And my mission is to help visionaries, business owners develop healthy and strong companies through developing healthy and strong visionary integrator duo relationships. If you've never heard of the terms visionary and integrator, I'll give you a quick rundown of what they are. To give credit where credit is due, these terms come from the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS. The system is explained in the book Traction by Gino Wickman, and the visionary integrator duo is explained more thoroughly in the book Rocket Fuel by Mark C. Winters. In EOS, they recommend that you have two people at the top of an organization, the visionary and the integrator, and they couldn't be any more different. The visionary is often, but not always, the founder of the company. They're passionate and emotional. They love making the big sale, managing big relationships, and solving big problems. People love to follow them because of their passion and vision. Now, the integrator is the opposite. They're typically very logical and process-minded. They love managing people, solving small problems, and the day-to-day management of a business. When these two people can get aligned and unified, they're a powerful force that can take a business to the next level. So what I do is I help visionary business owners to develop that integrator type that has that complementary skill set. I also help the two of them to learn how to communicate and stay on the same page. So I've worked with visionary for 14 years. I'm on my third visionary now, and I've learned a lot. I've definitely seen it all. I've seen how rough it can be, and I've seen how incredible it can be. And one thing I've realized is that the visionary integrator dynamic is a lot like a marriage. Men and women are very different. Their brains work differently. Their perspective is different. The things they attach importance to are different. It's the same with the visionary and integrator. They are very different. I believe that this is by design in both circumstances, but in order to maximize the potential of these two relationships, there's some work to be done. So I'm in my 12th year of marriage to my lovely wife, Livia. She and I are very different. And I don't know about the rest of you, but in our marriage, we've definitely had seasons where one of us or both of us were trying to change the other person, trying to get the other person to be more like us. As you can imagine, and probably have experienced, this doesn't work very well. It's much more effective to accept each other for what they are and then learn to appreciate it and even at some point leverage it. The same is needed in the visionary integrator duo. These three things need to happen in order to get the most out of this relationship. So again, the first is accept who they are. Number two, learn to appreciate who they are. And three, learn to leverage who they are. So there's a certain amount of an emotional intelligence needed to do those three things effectively. There also has to be a level of trust and vulnerability to get to the end result of leveraging each other's strengths. One of my current clients is what I would call an enlightened visionary. He's very aware of his weaknesses and doesn't try to hide them or mask them in any way. He's accepted them. At the same time, he's also aware of his strengths, but he doesn't puff them up or flaunt them. He's very humble. So what comes to mind when I think of him is something that I heard once in a message at my church. In this message, the pastor talked about meekness being a powerful attribute of a leader. Now, when I first thought about the word meek, I thought of it as synonymous with weak. But upon some further digging into the word's meaning, especially in the past, I discovered this definition: a decided strength of disciplined calmness. In contrast to inherent anger, this leadership virtue towards followers demonstrates a benevolent compassion. When I first read this definition, I laughed because the visionary I mentioned before referred to himself as a benevolent king in one of our recent sessions. I've also heard it explained like a war horse in days gone by that's carrying its rider or knight, for example. The horse is strong and powerful and could easily toss its rider to the ground or do whatever it wants, but it has strength under control. It has submitted to doing what's needed to get the job done. So often in marriage and in the visionary integrator duo, there has to be a level of putting yourself second to hear the other person's perspective. It doesn't mean that you back down from what you believe, but what you believe is less important than doing what's right to get the job done. So how do we accept the other person for who they are? With my first visionary, a lot of the time, all I could see was what was wrong with him. I saw the flaws, and I, on some level, became bitter and offended. I know that it limited my effectiveness and held us back from what was possible. Accepting them for who they are, I think, is releasing them from the need to change. The reality is that we can't change anyone anyway. We have to release them and choose to love them anyway, despite their flaws and weaknesses. For those of us that are married, does this ring a bell? I have to say that my wife knows all my flaws and weaknesses. And when she chooses to love me anyway, there's no deeper love than that. And I also want to touch on a different side to this. So I think we also have to accept ourselves for who that we are, the flaws, the warts, and all, right? The reality is we do have strengths and weaknesses. And until we fully accept them, I don't think this works either, right? I think there has to be an awareness on both sides of strengths and weaknesses and be able to accept each other for what we are. Because if you aren't accepting your weaknesses, then whenever your counterpart kind of addresses or talks about your weaknesses, you're going to become defensive, right? So I think it's really important also to accept ourselves for who they are. So now moving on, how do we move from accepting them to actually appreciating who they are? And I think we have to choose to focus on the strengths and not dwell on the weaknesses. It's amazing to me how we can choose to frame our thoughts in a way that creates the right attitude. So Chuck Swindoll said, the longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude to me is more important than facts. It's more important than the past, than educations, than money, than circumstances, than failure, than successes, than what other people think or say or do. It's more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, and a home. The remarkable thing is, we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we will embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play on the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I'm convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. So if we choose to focus on a person's weaknesses, we will get frustrated and annoyed, and it will cause division. If we choose to focus on their strengths, it will bring unity. Let's get real here. A visionary can be really annoying, as can an integrator. The visionary always has their head in the clouds, 20 ideas a week, a high percentage of which won't work. Even if they have a good idea, they likely won't have the follow through to make it happen. On the other side, the integrator asks too many questions, pokes holes in everything, and sees all the reasons why things won't work. Both of them are annoying if we choose to see it that way. Or we can choose to see it this way. The visionary is a dreamer. And while not every idea is a good one, there is one idea in there that will be the difference maker, that will push his company, this company, to the next level. The integrator, on the other hand, will protect us from making bad decisions by asking all the right questions and making sure that we are on the right track to make the vision happen. So once we can shift our thinking, like I just showed, now we've moved from accepting who they are to beginning to appreciate who they are. And now we can move to the third step, which is leveraging who they are. And I believe that when you leverage who they are, now you move to a new level of intentionality. You look for opportunities to put into action their unique ability. You do everything within your power to get them spending 80% of their time operating in their strengths, and you take as much as possible off their plate and delegate it to others. Now you can actually seek the person out when there are opportunities to leverage their strengths. For example, Integrator. I need you to filter some ideas that are bouncing around in my head. What do you think of them? I need your feedback. Or, for example, Visionary. I feel like this person in our company is lacking in passion for what we're doing. Could you take them for lunch and give them a pep talk and remind them of why we do what we do and how their role plays such a crucial part in it all? Now that we have that foundation is in place, we've accepted who each other are, we've began to appreciate who each other are, and now we're starting to leverage each other's strengths. Now we can move on to the next phase in developing the visionary integrator duo relationship. And I believe that this next phase is clarity of vision. Depending on whether a company is working with a professional EOS implementer or self-implementing, the approach here would be very different. In my opinion, the best approach is always to work with a professional EOS implementer, but sometimes circumstances don't allow for it. In my opinion, working with an implementer is worth every penny. They will help you to get this clarity of vision dialed in. They do this through 3 full-day sessions in which they help you create your vision and some other elements that are important. I'm not going to dig into this here, but if you'd like to learn more about what an EOS implementer does and what their process looks like, I'm happy to make an introduction. Or I do a bi-monthly what the heck is EOS webinar as well, and you'd be welcome to join that, and I'll put that on YouTube as well. If your company, on the other hand, is self-implementing, then you need to get this clarity of vision another way. I would encourage you to book some time with the leadership team, preferably, or with the visionary integrator duo to hash this all out. Without having clarity of vision, you cannot possibly stay on the same page or get your team fully engaged. The book Traction explains in chapter 10 what order you should implement EOS in. If you're self-implementing, I'd highly recommend that you follow the order described there. And I do offer a hub on the book Traction to help people to really begin to understand what EOS is. And I found that it's a very good tool for helping to bring clarity. So I'm going to shift gears a bit now. The rest of the time, I'll be sharing some common challenges that the VI duo faces when working together. And this is by no means an inclusive list. And afterwards, you know, I would love if you have other challenges that you faced, that you send me an email or comment on this video and let me know some other questions that you have or challenges that you have, and I'll answer those. Some of these issues that I'm going to talk about are common challenges I'm going to talk about will be addressed if you do the things that I previously described in this video. But sometimes some more work is needed. So how many of you have read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck? If you haven't, I recommend that you do. I'm going through it again currently, and something jumped out at me in my recent reading. The book primarily is discussing the impact of mindset on a person's success. It explains the difference between people with a fixed mindset and people with a growth mindset. So people with a fixed mindset are those who believe that abilities are fixed and cannot change over time. These people are far less likely to flourish than those with a growth mindset. And people with a growth mindset are those who believe that abilities can be developed through hard work, good strategies, and mentorship. On page 151 of the book, Carol, speaking of relationships, says people with a fixed mindset expect everything good to happen automatically. They say things like, if you have to work at it, it wasn't meant to be. Whereas in a growth mindset, partners will work to help each other solve their problems or gain skills. The first common challenge that limits the VI duo is one or both having a fixed mindset in one or multiple areas. This can really hold them back. For example, the visionary doesn't believe in investing in people's growth and development because they can't grow, so why waste the money? This sometimes comes out of history of a lack of growth in the organization and frustration with people for not growing. So, but the reality is this is a fixed mindset in relation to their team. Or maybe they might think that, what if we develop our people and they leave? Well, my response would be, what if we don't develop them and they stay? People development is paramount in building a great company. After all, who can afford to hire people who already have everything figured out? The reality is you have to develop people if you want to be competitive. So that is an example, a typical example of a visionary. So let's do an integrator example as well. So the visionary has a huge vision. Let's double the revenue of the company in the next year or two. An integrator with a fixed mindset would likely have a meltdown, thinking about that level and speed of growth. They likely couldn't even get their head around that and might think it was impossible. If they had a growth mindset, though, they would be able to think about how that might be possible, or at least open their mind to the possibility, or be able to think about what it would take to grow the team at that rate. Obviously, the two of them need to find a middle ground in this example, and slow and steady growth is sometimes better. But you can see how someone's mindset can hold back the relationship. So to overcome this, I would encourage reading and discussing Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, together, and confronting any fixed mindset you discover head on. Another common challenge that visionaries and integrators face is organizational whiplash. How many of you, I wonder if you know what organizational whiplash is. If you don't, I think you do, you just never called it that. It's basically that the visionary has an idea, sells it to the team, they get everyone excited about it, and then the team starts moving in that direction. Just in time for the visionary to change his or her mind and change the direction. Then the team pivots in that direction and gets excited about doing that and starts moving on that initiative. And then the visionary changes the direction again. If this happens enough, people stop getting excited because they wonder if there's any point, because the direction will likely just change anyway. This is why the integrator is so important. If you're a visionary, you need an integrator to help you stop this from happening. In its purest form, the integrator is the filter of all ideas. The visionary's ideas and whims do not get to the team unless the visionary and the integrator have discussed them and agree that the timing is right. Sometimes the integrator might say, let's do it. Or sometimes they might say, not right now. Or it might be a flat out no. But the reality is that an unfiltered visionary can cause a lot of problems in an organization. So my advice to you, if you're a visionary, know yourself. Do you cause organizational whiplash? If so, be honest with your integrator and give them permission to speak plainly and be your filter. And if you're an integrator, you need to get good at being the filter. You need to be able to think through the pros and cons of every idea and clearly communicate why something is a yes, a not yet, or a no. You need to advocate for what's best for the company and protect the visionary from him or herself. The third challenge that the visionary integrators face is end runs. End runs. They just have to stop. If you don't know what an end run is, we'll get into that now. So in staying with the analogy of marriage, an end run happens when a child goes around a parent to complain or get a better or different answer to his or her problem or question. So example, dad said no, so the child goes to mom and asks the same question, hoping to get the answer they want. So the same can happen in your organization, and how you handle it will determine your success or failure in large part. This happens most commonly in a company in which the visionary was the primary leader in the company for a long in the company for a long time, and people are used to going to them for answers. They need to be weaned off of this reliance on the visionary. In the EOS model, everything is supposed to go through the integrator. The integrator has their pulse on the operations of the company, and due to this, can make the best decisions for the good of the company. Also, the integrator is there to shelter the visionary from the noise of the day-to-day operations. Neither of these are possible if end runs are happening. Here's what to do to stop them. Depending on which role you're in. For the visionary, ask the question, are you going to tell the integrator, or am I going to tell the integrator? Because one of us needs to tell them. For the integrator, this is less likely to happen, but people will come to you complaining about their manager or other people in the organization. You need to take a similar approach. You need to encourage them to go to the person involved and try to resolve it themselves. If they can't get it resolved, then they can involve you in a conversation that happens between both parties to get resolution. Don't let people gossip or do end runs. This undermines the authority and accountability in a company. The next thing I'm going to talk about as a common challenge that visionaries and integrators face is bottlenecks. You must remove bottlenecks. A common challenge that I see with visionaries and integrators is an inability to delegate. This plays out differently between the two of them, and the reasons for it are quite different. In the visionary, if they're the founder in particular, it can be hard to trust other people with the business that they worked so hard to build. This will keep them from delegating things properly to their integrator. Traction calls this letting go of the vine. The problem is that if you don't let go, you will never live the EOS life. You will never have the business that you dreamed of when you started your business in the first place. You will stay stuck in the day-to-day noise of the business and be limited in your ability to operate in your unique ability as much as you would like. For the integrator, sometimes their inability to delegate is because of their desire for things to be done right. They may hold on to things too long. Again, it's a lack of trust. But the truth is, though, that if we hold on to things and don't delegate, we become a bottleneck for the company. So whether you're a visionary or an integrator, there's only so much of you to go around. If you want to grow and scale your business, more people need to get involved and have opportunities to grow. If you're holding on too long, you're stunting their growth and the growth of your business. So how do we change this? We have to learn to delegate in such a way that we can gradually release control to those around us. So back to the parenting marriage analogy. If your kid turns 14 and it's time for them to learn how to drive, do you just throw them the keys and wish them good luck? No, you gradually start to train them and give them safe boundaries to learn within. Once they pass their learner's test, do you give them keys and wish them good luck? No, you're still in the passenger seat guiding them along the way. Now, once they get their license, are they free to go and do as they please? Not if it's your car. You still have control of when they can use the car, where they can go, and when they need to be back. The point I'm trying to make is that you need to gradually release control to others in a controlled and healthy way. But you most definitely cannot be a bottleneck. Too much is at stake. A great book on this is If You Want It Done Right, You Don't Have to Do It Yourself. So there are more challenges that the VI duo face than what I've shared today, but I'm going to stop there and leave some time for discussion and questions. But before we do that, I want to give you all a free gift for attending today. So I've been working on an assessment designed to measure the unity between the visionary and integrator in a company. I'm going to drop the link in the comments after this is done. And this assessment is designed much like a premarital assessment, if you're familiar with how those work. It's sent out to the two people. They complete it individually, and the results are compiled into a report that identifies any red flags. In the premarital context, it could be something like, she wants 5 kids, he wants none. This is a problem and needs to be discussed before you pull the trigger. Similarly, the unity assessment is also looking for red flags that indicate a lack of unity. So as part of this free assessment, I offer a free 30-minute coaching consultation to review the results and discuss the red flags with the visionary integrator duo. Awesome. So that pretty much wraps it up. I do have other videos here on YouTube of some of my other webinars, so I'd invite you to check those out as well, and follow us on LinkedIn, subscribe to the channel. And as I mentioned before, I would love to invite you to ask me any questions that you have. You can throw them in the comments. I'd love your feedback as well. If there's other challenges that you have or have seen, please, put them in the chat. I'd love to create a video to answer any questions that you have. and I'll post that on social media, on YouTube. I'm happy to help. I'm here to serve. And thank you for your time.